The athletic apparel space is heating up, and Brooks Running is looking to capitalize here. As you look about and think about this company, they saw global revenue climb 5% so far this year. U.S. e-commerce sales, that jumped 25% through its direct-to-consumer business. And year to date, the company has racked up 21.4% of the running footwear market in the U.S. For more, we've got Jim Weber, who is the Brooks Running CEO, joining us now in studio. Always great to catch some time with you here. Walk us through some of the biggest catalysts that you're seeing in the running market right now that are driving some of these results for the business.
It's a pretty unique time. Probably the best marketplace for performance running footwear that I've seen in some 20 years. Couple drivers. A, participation solid. People are running, people are walking, people are hiking, trail running. There's just so many ways that they're using this product in the gym, on the treadmill. So the participation's there. Secondly, what's interesting is the footwear category is up about 6% year to date, but above $100, the premium price segment is up 17%. So we're making the cut. You know, a consumer with income and assets is spending,
right,
and the category we're in is getting a big piece of that. The other piece is that it's become the silhouette that's got universality to it. People are using it, you know, taking it on the plane with them in the gym. So it's a great time to be in performance running.
So how do you stay in front of the competition? Because I feel like I'm seeing more and more Hoka on sneakers. How do you stay in front of that?
There's so much competition right now, and I think it's innovation. You know, what's happened to us, we were very disrupted with COVID and supply chain the last 2 years. Finally, we're back on track with product introductions. So we've got a lot of innovation coming to market, and that's the key. We've got nitro-injected midsoles, which are very light, more durable, best cushioning that we've ever put into a shoe, plus broader ranges of color. A new shoe called the Ghost Max that has the glide roll technology that's maximum cushioning. So I think, you know, our category is always driven by product, and we've got a great pipeline coming.
So how different is the Ghost Max from the Ghost? Because I'm familiar with the Ghost. We talked before about, you know, Ghost, glycerin, et cetera. What's different?
Well, the Ghost is our best-selling shoe of all time, and it's, I think, the top-selling shoe in running. The Ghost Max is along the lines of this maximal cushioning trend. 10 years ago, we'd be talking about barefoot, but now a lot of consumers are looking for maximal cushioning, and the key to that working, because it doesn't flex, it's so thick, is a rocker. And so that's a preferred shoe by some runners, not for everyone, but by many.
What runner are you seeing gravitate towards Brooks right now the most as you continue to see the consumer out there that is trying to figure out, okay, you know, not just how much am I spending on a shoe, what kind of durability am I going to get out of the shoe? What are the purposes I'm going to use it for as well? I mean, we're sitting here overlooking New York City where we're going to have the marathon in just a few days. So what type of runner is gravitating towards the brand from what you're seeing in the data?
I think one of the things that makes us unique is our just obsession with runners and starting there. And then of course that silhouette is great for walking and the gym and everything else, but in running, it's that frequent runner, that dedicated runner that's put in a lot of mileage, because if it works at mile 26, it's going to work at mile 3 for you. So that's why we try to prove the product with people that are putting in a lot of mileage, and the key is to get that second shoe, because runners know if that shoe is working for them. So that's the core, but then of course the speed shoe market with carbon plates has just been hugely innovative, and a lot of people are looking for that shoe for race day because it makes them a little faster, springy carbon plate in the shoe. And then of course trail. So I think we're competing in every category and segment on the premium side of things, and we're trying to make the best in class product in that segment. But I think in the core of everyday trainers, cushion is a universal truth, and we're doing really well there with dedicated runners.
You mentioned the Ghost Max is thicker than the Ghost. How does it compare to, say, the Adrenaline? Is it a thicker sole than the Adrenaline?
It is. And so what's interesting is the new big midsole shoes tend to lock your foot up. It's a rocker. Your foot doesn't move. And for most runners that are doing mileage, you want your foot to move a little bit for most runners. So the Ghost and Adrenaline are right in that sweet spot.
When you think about pricing strategy, and for the consumer that we were talking about, where you're recognizing price, where you're realizing the consumer is still willing to pay up versus what's also been a promotional environment for some of the competition that's out there too. What does that kind of target for full sales of your inventory or full price realization look like right now?
You know, it's the best environment ever. We're seeing customers willing to pay premium prices. So the healthiest price points are $140, $160, $200. That's new. one of the things I think about is that going to be the case a year or 2 or 3 from now, especially for that person that's buying 3 pairs a year? Will they pay, $200? So I don't know the answer to that, but we're building really strong products at every one of those price points. I think running, what's happened now with all the innovation in shoes is the shoe matters. People, and it does, we've always believed that, but for a lot of people, the shoe matters. And so finding the right product for them, they tend to create some loyalty around that, even though they're curious and try new things. So they've been willing to pay more for this type of product than we've ever seen before.
And then in terms of the marathon, which as Brad mentioned is coming up this week in the New York City Marathon, it's huge. You'll have runners from all over the world coming here. Which Brooks are we going to see the most, especially for the fastest runners?
It's interesting. 47,000 people, I think, ran this race last year. It's international. It's an incredible race. We had about 20% of the runners, they do high-speed cameras account, were on Brooks last time. So something like 9,000 or 10,000 runners. The number one shoe on course was the Ghost last year, without a doubt. It's our top seller.
All right.
You have to listen closely to our next guest. His sneakers just moved up to number 4 among teens, surpassing Vans, according to a recent Piper Sandler survey. And their partnerships with athletes, as well as being a sponsor of this weekend's New York City Marathon, has boosted the company's profile. We've got Joe Preston, New Balance CEO, with us. Great to have you here in studio with us ahead of a very big weekend for you guys.
Well, good morning. It's great to be here. Yeah, it's always an exciting week leading up to New York City Marathon. You have 50,000 runners that come from around the world, literally 150 countries that they come in, and all of them been training for a big day, and it looks like the weather's going to cooperate.
We'd love to hear weather cooperation. Look, a big weekend in the midst of a big year for you guys. I mean, you think about some of the fanfare that you've got among the cohorts of millennials, Gen Z, Taylor Swift, Rich Paul, and then the performance athletic side too. It sounds like, and it looks like things are clicking on all cylinders. How do you capitalize on this moment and move the business forward from here?
Yeah, our business is really strong. So it's been that way for 3 consecutive years, and we just had our best back to school ever. All of our metrics are really strong. It's happening here in the U.S. We're about 1/3 of our businesses in North America, and the other 2/3 are around the globe, and every region is up over 20% versus the previous year.
What do you see as the big drivers, though? I mean, in some ways, when you think about where New Balance is, he's talked about the collaborations that you've had, but the athlete collaborations. You've also had collaborations with some big brands, too.
Yeah. Well, it's never just one thing, but the collaborations that we have done and continue to do, we're very selective about who we work with, but those have been a good accelerator for the brand. The product that our teams are producing, the fit, the finish, the feel of all of them, it's really, when people come into the brand and experience that, they usually come back.
What's the next leg of innovation look like for New Balance?
Well, we have our teams that are constantly focusing on trying to make product, whether it's the midsole, more responsive, more cushioning, and all of that. And, we just introduced the 1080, which I'm wearing today, which is the official shoe of the New York City Marathon, a couple of weeks ago, and it's been our strongest introduction of a running shoe in many years, so we're really excited about it.
You've got a good pulse on the consumer as well, at least where you compete in the market. I'm curious what you have seen in terms of where the spending is. Do you find that consumers are still willing to shell out sort of at a higher price point? Do you see a little pullback? We're talking specifically shoes, but I'm just curious what your vantage point looks like.
Well, for our brand, we have been gaining shares. So our business has been really strong. Overall, the footwear market for athletic footwear has been struggling here a little bit. It's been a difficult year for retailers in general. But you're seeing young people that the expression that they want to have is usually a phone and what they're wearing, and footwear and apparel is a big part of that.
When you think about that difficult environment for retail on the whole this year, there's been a lot of kind of question mark about at what level has inventory moved through and into people's hands, on their feet, on their home, and at full price sales. How are you having to go about that pricing mechanism strategy at New Balance?
The entire industry dealt with sourcing challenges with the shutdown of overseas production, specifically in Vietnam, and that really impacted inventories. But now I would say coming into holiday, inventories are generally back to where they were before. I mean, some brands may have an issue just because some of the product isn't selling, but the sourcing challenges are behind us.
Yeah, sourcing challenges behind you, but to Brad's specific point on pricing, How are you seeing things shake down going into what is typically one of the busiest holiday shopping seasons? We've heard some retailers talk about additional discounting that may be needed because consumers are pulling back on discretionary spending. What's your expectation?
I think each retailer is going to deal with it on their own on how much they feel they need to discount. For us, pricing power is really relative to brand strength. So right now we're enjoying a really strong brand, so our pricing power is as strong as it's ever been.
What's the hotspot outside of the U.S. for New Balance right now?
Europe is really strong. It's up over 30% this year, but all throughout Asia, every major market that we're doing business with.
Is there a specific trend or any type of activity that's driving that from what you're seeing in the sales of in those markets too?
I think during COVID really allowed us to become more of a global company. So the top sellers that we see here in the U.S. are the top sellers throughout the world.
You talk about sourcing and how you've sort of, kind of had to think about that over the course of the last several years, especially during the pandemic. Has that shifted where you think about manufacturing, when you think about sourcing? Is the company really moving towards more diversification as we've seen with others?
Well, New Balance is the only athletic footwear manufacturer to have manufacturing here in the U.S. We have 5 factories here in the U.S., 3 in Maine and 2 in Massachusetts. We've also just finished building a manufacturing innovation center, which is 1 mile from our headquarters, which is going to allow us to continue to develop capabilities that allow us to grow our domestic production.
When you think about that manufacturing right now, we were just poring over the numbers earlier this morning, looking through the employment situation and manufacturing, one of those areas that's been hit because of the strength of the employee right now in negotiations in the manufacturing sector. And it was autos in this case, but to what extent are you monitoring where there is the ability to make sure that the cost of living expenses that your employees face, that they're offset by making sure that they have not only a good work experience, but also a good compensation experience too?
Yeah, and there's many aspects to it. There's health,
right,
benefits, and those type of things. We've been in Maine for more than 40 years, and in the Merrimack Valley in Massachusetts for more than 40 years. So we have a really stable employment base there, and our HR teams are constantly looking at making sure that the wages are competitive and it's livable.
Have you seen them push higher? I mean, part of this is about the discussion with the employee and the expectations pushing higher as a result of where the labor market is right now.
I think everybody has experienced labor wages increasing over the past 3 years, regardless of the sector. So yes, we've experienced that.
We saw some amazing splits coming out of the Chicago Marathon just weeks ago. And so we have no doubt that there's going to be some remarkable display of athletic performance out here in New York City. Joe, thanks so much for taking some time here with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.